The Division. It stands out as one of the biggest games to have the most captivating concept, yet unfortunate execution. In 2016, The Division was released to the gaming public, and well, the rest is history. It was to be Ubisoft's next million-dollar IP, a third-person looter shooter set in a beautiful, snow-covered future New York City. The world had gone rotten after an airborne virus decimated the US, and the setup was simple yet very interesting. Investigate the chaos of the smallpox epidemic and put a stop to the crime boiling in the quarantine and shattered city of New York. I don't know about you, but that sounded awesome. The Division showed great promise early on with fantastic gunplay, well, at least in theory, a great snow-covered environment, and the introduction of the Dark Zone to add some tension-filled PvP gameplay to the experience.
Area secured.
Adding in some competitive features, RPG-style elements for looting and progression, and top-notch visuals, and The Division should have definitely been a winner. Unfortunately, it was one of those games that the public just did not get behind. It was criticized heavily for an overall lack of content and variety, bullet-spongy enemies, and subpar mission design. It just wasn't the epic game we had hoped for, and the Dark Zone was riddled with hackers. It had its moments, but it was clear that The Division was pushed out the door way too soon. It was an experience that was both rushed and thin and lacking and in need of a cure. The aftermath of The Division was a sad time for fans of Tom Clancy, while peaking at around 113,000 players on day one, yet that count would plummet to under 3,500 within a few short months, so it was looking like The Division would need some major revision. After nearly 2 years, The Division has been reborn, but has the experience been worth it? Are people sticking around for it? Or is it just another temporary band-aid for a game that should have had that new content from day one? The Division broke the industry record for the biggest week launch of a new game franchise ever, generating $330 million globally. It was also the #1 bestseller in Japan, but after the initial honeymoon period, players began to leave The Division. For a long time, people forgot about The Division simply because it wasn't much of a game. Through the passage of time, Ubisoft's yearly plans awarded them little success driving players back into the game outside of the survival patch. During November of 2008, the player count boomed nearly 400% as people checked out this new game mode, which was actually pretty goddamn fantastic. It's unfortunate that this wasn't in the base game, the survival mode, because it would have been a very good mode to provide meaningful variety from the main campaign. Scavenging for supplies and warmth in the torrential snowstorm alongside other players in survival was so fun, yet it was only of temporary interest to players. Shortly after the patch, you know it, player counts dropped back down once again. But time went on, amidst a plethora of bite-sized patches and updates that did little to wake up the player base. Finally, after 2 years, the quote-unquote patch to fix the game has come. Resistance was released on December 5th of last year. With this new patch, the PvE zone was expanded, new game modes were added, and changes to the rogue system in the Dark Zone were implemented. Players can now jump into Skirmish and Resistance and obtain new gear sets and exotic weapons by completing new game content. Having played much of it, I can honestly say that Resistance is a great addition. The West Side piers are awesome, and the changes to the Underground are well appreciated. Finally, the Underground is actually fun to farm in. Many players, including myself, appreciate the changes to Rogue 2.0, even though it's important to understand that it's not possible to please everyone with this system, and the optimization station is a great idea that will help many players. But what happened to all the players who hop back into Division to enjoy all this stuff? In the wake of 1.8, the Division's player bases rose the same degree that it did during survival. Unfortunately though, that number has once again dropped back down to under 10,000 players, right where this million-dollar IP does not want to be. Many an opinionated fan claim the patch 1.8 features are good for the game, but they would have benefited the game much greater upon release, and they are not wrong. The Division is a game to be enjoyed over time. It's almost a community at this point. So it would have been in best interest for the game to get the support it truly deserved right off the bat, so it could have grown as a game with the players that love it over time. One of the critical components to service-based games is that they capture that sense of excitement early and hold on to that magical feeling months and years thereafter. They do this by offering paid and free content to supplement their game. That was the plan with The Division as stated by Ubisoft and displayed with their multi-year roadmap. So why handicap a game by releasing it in stages, and why bank on a patch almost 2 years down the road to bring everyone back into it? The biggest downfall of games that start off lacking and that eventually get better is that they often lose that feeling of newness over time. When Ubisoft released patch 1.8, they didn't release a new game, only fragments of the same game that people weren't excited about years prior. Sure, you've added new things and made tweaks to the game, but it's still the same game. The core of the experience might be better, but it's not new anymore. This is the unfortunate reality with The Division. Today, it's a fantastic game with many reasons to play it and features to dive into, but it just doesn't feel as gripping when you've already played through most of it and you've moved on to other games. Just imagine how much greater that excitement would have been if this was day one. I'd be willing to bet The Division would have had a much more thriving community and a much more constant player base had they taken the time to finish the game when it should have been completed. I love The Division today, but I'm not accepting towards the release it now, add it in later approach, especially when the major additions, or at least some of them, are tied to paid content, as seen with the $15 price tag for the Survival or the $90 Gold Edition. Sure, the game is finally complete, or so they say, but it should have been that way on day one. I appreciate what Ubisoft has done with The Division, but alongside many other people, it's just a little bit too late to capture my interest for any substantial period of time. But it might have in 2016 had the game released in today's state. Hey, thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. Once again, this is not a video berating The Division and Ubisoft. I actually really like this game. It's just a realization at this point that you really have to do all you can early on with the game to capture a community so you can take it forward into the future. And with The Division, I get this sensation that they did the bare bones early on just to get it out there so that they could add to it later. I think it's pretty clear that The Division today should have been the Division of yesterday, but now we're paying a whole lot more for it with the season pass and all the additions. So does that business model really get people invested into your games and just get them excited to continue to support them? Well, as the data shows, not really. Once again, thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and thumbs it up, and if you didn't, then you can thumbs it down as well. Have a great day, and we'll see you in our next video.